There we go.
Deadly. Right on, man. Well, thank you for doing this.
Set to go, pal.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. It's been a while, hey?
It's been a long time. I see your links. I see the guest list you got every day. It's freaking great. I got to get some of those guests on our fucking show.
Well, just let me know who you need, and I'll reach out. I'll help you out for sure, man.
No, you know what? You got a great guest list. You do a great job of hunting these people down. It's really good.
Yeah, thanks, man. And so how's it going with you and Taylor doing the show together, the team, of course, on Check TV?
Donnie's the key. Donnie's the key. And, I did 32 years in radio, and now I get this opportunity in television. But if Donnie's not there, we're not doing it. He's just absolutely unequivocally, he's just a legend, and he just knows TV. Like I walked in after 32 years of radio. I've never done TV in my life. I did some community TV back in the early 90s, but I'm not a TV guy. I got a face for radio, and I am not a TV guy, but Donnie is 100% the key.
Yeah. And of course the tie between you guys obviously would be sports. So can you think about your first sports memory? Like, what's the first thing you remember about sports?
Are you talking in the industry or just in general?
Just in general, like as a little kid.
Oh man, road hockey every day. Like school would end at 3, and we would have our road hockey game going up and running by 3:30. Everybody would run home, grab something quick to eat. Boom, boom. 3:30. The ball hockey game starts. Rain, sleet. It snow, cold, it didn't matter. We played road hockey every single, and on weekends we would start at 9 a.m. till go till 5 or 6, and just game after game, road hockey. And this was late 70s, early 80s, and that's when the Canucks got hot in 82, and you're just Schmiel, Gradine, Fraser, that Richard Berder. That 82 team was so amazing, and it was just in our wheelhouse. We're playing road hockey. Everybody wants to be, Schmiel, Gradine, or Fraser, and it was just a really good time back there. And the kids were always out. Now the kids have their cell phones. They have their video games. Nobody goes out anymore. Now, I can't tell you the last time I saw a road hockey game in the last few years driving around Vancouver. I just, you don't very rarely see it. Back in our days, it was multiple road hockey games, but we didn't have the video games. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have what the kids have today.
Well, you just got to go up to Templeton Pool by the Templeton High School. Every Sunday we do road hockey from about noon till 4 every Sunday.
Oh, really?
Like bunch of dads and little kids and shit. But now the little kids are getting like they're 9, they're 10, they're 11. They're starting to fucking burn us, right? Like they're actually getting pretty good.
Growing up in Queensboro, New West, we used to play in lacrosse boxes in New West, and those things were tough because you had to run, and we'd have tournaments that would always be in lacrosse boxes. And hockey, road hockey was so big. We'd get our $10 Canadian Tire hockey stick, and then when it broke, we had to get the blade. And we didn't get a new blade till you could pick your nose with the old blade. It was so freaking thin. And we had the tennis balls. We played with the orange ball. It was just a different time. And obviously we're in a different time now. But I miss those simple days growing up. I just think the kids today, it's a different lot, and they have different things. But for us, it was very, very simple life.
Yeah. Get off my lawn. How about present day? Like, what's your favorite to watch now, and what's your favorite to play?
Video games or just in general?
No, sports.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm over 50. My best friend in the world right now is A535 Rob. I got enough issues cut. I poured some on last night. I got enough issues cutting the grass and weed eating the grass. My sports days are over. I do go for a long walk Todd, every day. It just to get the old stresses. And you know what? Being on, where and you're on social media, I'm on social media. It can be a different cat, and it can drive multiple sources of stress sometimes. And you got to be careful. It's just we just live in a different world. But sports wise, I put my kids in minor hockey. I watch them play. And I did my part there in terms of, I never got that opportunity because I didn't grow up in a house that could, and plus there was not many kids playing ice hockey back in the day when we were playing road hockey. It was pretty expensive. And not that it is expensive now. It was kind of like, holy smokes. No, we couldn't do that. But nowadays it's just watching a lot of sports for Donnie and Dolly, and just trying to keep the pulse of what's happening with the Canucks, Lions, Whitecaps. I used to cover the Lions and the Whitecaps, Todd, a lot in the 90s. Now I've shifted mostly towards Canucks. We just live in a different era where Canucks information is just so, everybody wants to know who's getting traded, who's getting cut, who's getting, all that stuff. But I still love the Lions. I still love the Whitecaps. I went to Empire Stadium to watch Roy DeWalt, Mervyn Fernandez, Jim Sandusky, and all those guys, Larry Key and John Henry White in the backfield, Al Wilson, great offensive lineman. Lions teams are so good. The 85 Lions, I think, was the best Lions team of all time, 79 Soccer Bowl. Look, Todd, I went to Empire Stadium to watch the Lions, the Whitecaps. I went to the Coliseum to watch the Canucks. It was a good time. It was much cheaper. I remember taking $10. Todd, and I tell this story to Arthur Griffiths all the time. This is going back to 82 regular season. I took $10 from my grandma. And in that $10, I went from Queensboro on a bus to a Canucks game. Ticket was $7.50. I'm going to say $8. I'm going to say within that $10, I got a ticket, hot dog, drink, came back home, all within the $10. You try now. Go try to see what you get at a Canucks game for $10. Nothing.
Nothing, man. Parking is 20.
Nothing. Because you got to pay. It's a different world. Back then,
it's no longer a blue collar sport. If for me to take my kids, and same for you, it's like a $700, $800 night.
Oh, and here's the other one for you, Todd. Back then, the NHL owners were billionaires. Now they're billionaires. It's a big difference. It's obviously the population has gone up in the world, and with that, the economics of the world. And now these millionaires are now billionaires, and it's a whole new different experience for fans. But I remember telling Arthur Griffiths that story in a $10 bill, and I got to a Canucks game and back.
Crazy.
82, and you can't get water at a Canucks game for under $10.
No, not happening.
Times are changing.
What were of course they've changed, not changing, they've changed. What were the big moves from the trade deadline, NHL trade deadline, that kind of stood out for you?
Well, okay, so the Canucks wanted to do two things at the deadline, Todd. They wanted to shed some salary cap space, and they wanted to get younger. I think they did that.
Yeah,
they wanted to get younger. They got that with Dermott. They wanted to shed some salary. They got rid of Hamonick's salary, saved $1.5 million in that process. I think the only thing they wanted to do that they didn't execute, but they tried, was getting Yaroslav Halak moved. I think they tried, they just couldn't do it. But I think in order to shed some more salary, Todd, I think you're going to see them try that in the summer, and they will try and give it one more try at the NHL draft to shed some salary, get a little bit younger, and so they can, just this regime, their hands are tied, Todd, because they were handed a salary cap situation that is not really good by the previous regime. Mm-hmm. So they are spending a lot of their time just trying to correct some of those cap issues.
And who do you see winning the cup this year?
Oh, first of all, Colorado is unbelievable. We saw that even though the Canucks beat them. I mean, my goodness, it's so good, so quick, so fast, so skilled. They got two defensemen there, and one of them is an Abbotsford native who you should try and get on your show one day, is Devon Taves. He played 28 minutes, most of any player in that Canucks-Colorado game. And him and Cale Makar are one of the best pairs in the National Hockey League. And Devon Taves quickly, Surrey Eagles, all right? Then he, 2-3 years, Surrey Eagles, 2-3 years, Quinnipiac University, and then he went 2-3 years in American League. So just, no one's got patience, Todd, in hockey. And I put my kids to it, and parents, it's the hardest thing to have patience. Everybody wants to be good today, but this Devon Taves kid, BC Hockey League, NCAA hockey, then the American League, and now if Canada went to the Olympics, I'm telling you, he would have been on the radar. He's that good. But look at the patience. It's just going about his business. And now he's playing 26, 27, 28 minutes a night for the best team in the National Hockey League. Florida, Carolina, Tampa Bay, the Eastern Conference is stacked, Todd. I don't know who the hell is coming out of the East. Everybody seems to think Colorado is coming out of the West. There are some teams that will give them trouble. I mean, it's just not going to be a cakewalk, I don't think, for Colorado. But look at the East. Oh, my goodness. The top
is stacked.
It's stacked. And look at the first round. The first round of the Eastern Conference, Todd, is going to have 4 very good teams eliminated. 4 very good teams that are going to be out in the first round.
Right, which means the second round. Oh, my God.
Yeah, and the second round is going to be even better. The West, obviously, Colorado, they're number 1 in the NHL, and their home record is the Canucks beat them the other night, but they were 25-3-3 at home, 47-7-7 in the last 2 years at home. And if home too big in the playoffs, what matters? You got to have depth because the injuries are going to hit. Okay, you want to have 4 good lines, as a 6 solid D, a good backup goalie, the depth, but home ice advantage. You fight hard for home ice advantage, Todd, and the Avalanche are just so awfully tough. And that's why the Canucks, 5 out of 6 points here this week in tough buildings in Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas. I mean, you got to give them credit. Got to give the credit. They keep that. There's no quit in this team under Bruce Boudreau. There's no quit.
Yeah. And how about the Lions bringing back kicker Sean White? And, I didn't think Riley had that good of a season last year. How do you think they're going to do this year?
Lions are going to be interesting to me. They're going to go with 2 Canadian quarterbacks, which is unheard of. It is. I can't remember the last time a CFL. I think you'd have to go back to the 50s or 60s. Last time CFL had 2 Canadian quarterbacks. I think the Lions will be better. They spent a lot of money on free agency. My biggest thing, Todd, with the Lions, the last time they had this city really interested in their team was, you remember Dickinson Printers, that 5-6 year run where, they had 35,000 at BC Place. They never have got back to that. And they got to get back to that. They got a new owner who's willing to spend some money. Okay. And he's got new, fresh ideas, a younger guy, David Braley, have to give him credit, Todd. David, God bless his soul. If he's not the owner of the BC Lions, Lions don't exist in Vancouver. Simple as that. In his first 3 years of ownership in 95, 96, 97, he lost $9 million and he stuck in there. Yeah, that's right. Remember, he got the team locked. He got the team because the team was in receivership. He came in, he lost a ton of money. He hung in there, but David Braley was absolutely an incredible owner. And he was just a really, really good owner for the BC Lions. They're in new hands, but they got to find a way. 2 things are happening for me, Todd, with the BC Lions. They got to get younger. Their audience is too old and they got to get younger. Okay. I'm that guy that went to watch them at Empire Stadium in the late 70s. Well, they got to look, I'm still a Lions fan, but they got to get the young kids. The young kids won't go to a CFL game, but you put the Grizzlies here, I guarantee you the young kids go, but they got to find a way to get their average fan base down, because once those kids start going to CFL games, everything starts working. The Whitecaps audience, Todd, is way younger than the Lions. Yeah. That's a big time issue with the BC Lions right now.
And how about MMA? Are you a fight fan? You watch UFC and Bellator?
No, really? No. I am, for some reason, and here's the thing for you, Todd. I grew up on Stampede Wrestling. You remember Stampede Wrestling?
Of course, the Hart brothers and all that, yeah.
Bad News Allen, Wakamatsu, Foley. I used to go to when Stampede Wrestling, Ed Whalen, God bless him, he was so good. In the meantime and in between time, that's another edition of Stampede Wrestling. Yes. And it's Stampede Wrestling. Before that was All-Star Wrestling out in Cloverdale. We used to watch that. Then Stampede. Then I went over to the WWF. I was a huge wrestling guy. The Dynamite Kid, British Bulldog, they all came. The Stampede Wrestling had so many guys go on to the, Vince McMahon and WWF, Dynamite Kid was so good. The Hart brothers were so good. I was a big wrestling guy back in the day. Never got into the MIA. Never. I don't know why. It just doesn't appeal to me. But wrestling was so big in the 80s.
Dude, wrestling just ate up your time, didn't it, as a kid?
My guys were Roddy Piper, Jesse the Body Ventura. I mean, I go back to Jimmy Snuka, all these guys, Lou Albano. It just, wrestling was big back.
Yeah. Well, you and I got to be around the same age then, because you're naming off all the shit. Same thing for me. Superfly Snuka and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and all those classic wrestlers, right?
Todd, wrestling was so big, but it started with Stampede Wrestling, and then I would go to Gene Kaniski, Stan, Leo, Jonathan, and Playboy Buddy Rose in All-Star Wrestling.
Wow.
All-Star Wrestling was out of Cloverdale every Saturday, and then Stampede took over, and it was big Stampede Wrestling. Ed Whalen, like I said, it was just must-watch TV. Growing up, Stampede Wrestling was such a big part of my life.
Yeah, same for me. I grew up in Surrey. I went to Simon Cunningham and Green Timbers as a little kid, right? So all to say, fuck, you're just naming off everything. It's like a flashback to my childhood.
Yeah.
But
I went to the Coliseum to watch Stampede Wrestling. I remember a card there with Bad News Allen and Dr. D. David Schultz. It was really good stuff. But Canada, so many good wrestlers that went on to the WWF. Canada just produced so many good wrestlers over the years.
Oh, totally. You could argue that Bret Hart is the best of all time.
Absolutely. I think I just love the Hart family. I just love absolutely everything that they brought to the table. What book did I read? It was probably Bret Hart's book, and how his dad started everything in their basement in Calgary.
Well, and the Hart Foundation, the Hart family actually had a big role in the Bollywood Boys.
That's
making
right.
It to where they did. Yeah, I just had those guys on.
Yeah, you are 100% correct in that. No, I'm not into the MMA or whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. I was just a big wrestling guy back in the day. Big.
All right, I told you it'd be 15, 20. We're at 20 now. I want to get a few things. I want to get to know you a little bit. So if I can blast through some stuff outside of sports.
Yep.
Which TV shows were you binging over the pandemic? What are you binging right now?
Elvis Presley's. There's a series on Elvis. I was a big Elvis fan, Todd. I still, how there are some deaths where you remember where you were when they were announced.
Sure.
And I'll never forget when Elvis passed. and I was in Kamloops. And back then they didn't have Twitter, and it was just you got the news hours later in Canada if something big happened. But anyways, I'm watching. I'm binging on. There's a documentary on Elvis right now. I was a big fan of his growing up, and I'm doing that right now. But you know what? I read a lot of books. I just finished reading Will Smith's book about his ups and downs in his career and what he did. Mike Tyson. I'm starting up a Mike Tyson book. But I do want to tell you, Todd, growing up in the 80s, it was Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Three's Company, Love Boat, Fantasy Island. Come on, you're right there. Don't tell me you're not. Those were the shows that were absolutely Happy Days was big for me. The Love Boat, remember the Love Boat? All those shows. The 80s had, for me, Todd, that the best decade for TV shows and music was 80s. I'm just like, I'm going to tell you right now. I know people. I'm an 80s music junkie. Anything in the 80s, I don't give a shit if it's what's his name, that Culture Club. I will listen to it.
George.
Yeah, Boy George. Hey, listen, 80s is my decade for music. Yeah, we were talking about Huey Lewis and the News on the show the other day with Donnie.
Great
and it was a great album, Sports. And I just, Huey Lewis and the News, it was a massive album. But anyways, 80s music and TV shows, that's the best decade for me.
Oh, hands down. And what was your first concert you went to?
That one's U2, Joshua Tree at BC Place, 86, 87. It was either 6 or 87.
What was the music in your house like as a kid? Like in the Dhaliwal house, what are you hearing?
Hey, different times back then. There wasn't a very big Indo-Canadian population in Canada back then. Like I got here in 1970, and in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't a lot. And back then we didn't have a ton. We had the big TVs, the big heavy TVs. We had our radios. I was mostly listening, just get in the car, turn on. Remember LG 73 was the big one for us.
Of course,
LG 73, and you know that, Todd. LG 73 was the place to be for music back in the 80s.
And like LG back then was like all over the map too. It was like you said, Hall and Oates, but it would be like, maybe some Sabbath, and like it was all over the place.
They had the top 7 at 7 and the top 8 at 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was the top 7. Like some of the Dean Hill, Graham Hatch, who are still booting around now. I think
they are. So,
and because you were such a tremendous DJ as well. You know what? LG 73 was our go-to place, and then Dick Clark's top 30 at 30. We got Sunday nights, and but it was top 40 for me. It was just top 40. And LG 73 would go to Quiet Riot and Come On Feel the Noise would be their number one hit at the top 7 at 7. But they gave it to you all back then. You nailed it. It wasn't just, it was a little bit of heavy metal. It was a little bit of everything at LG 73 back then.
Yeah. I mean, almost kind of like Jack now today, but not even close.
My go-to station, I'm not going to lie to you, simply because the music is Jack and CFMI but do you know the one out of Bellingham? What's the one out of Bellingham? The FM rock. KISM Bellingham.
KISM, yeah. My buddy Brad actually does the morning show there.
Yeah, I listen to those guys driving in all the time too. Those guys, he's got deep voice. That guy's got a fucking great voice. But for me, it's FM in the car, and I'll punch until I get my favorite song.
Yeah. Here, are you a gambler, by the way? I meant to ask that. Like, do you gamble on sports?
A quick story. Back in the 80s, we went to Hastings Park, me and the boys. I bet $20, lost all 20 in 2 seconds, never went back again. Never. And I don't bet. I don't get this, the betting stuff now. but I never did it. Never did it.
Yeah, because then you start thinking about all the other cool shit you could have got for that $20.
Back, I picked a horse. He didn't finish. I was told you lost the 20. Never again.
That's it. I'm done.
Done.
Right. Rick, I want to respect your time. 2 more questions and we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
Share a near-death story with us where you're like, holy crap, I could have died. I should have died just now.
We had, oh boy. We had the junior hockey. We used to travel, and we used to go from Fort St. John to Prince George to Williams Lake and Cornell. We used to do that trip 4 to 5 times a year. And there were some nights, Todd, and we'd be coming back at 3, 4 in the morning. And in the year 1 I did it, we had the old school bus, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, there were some nights through the Pine Pass. I don't know if you know what the Pine Pass is, but it's between Prince George and Fort St. John.
Yeah. There
were some scary nights going down some very scary hills on a junior hockey bus, 2 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. It was minus 40 outside, ice all over the place. But thank God for those bus drivers that got us through those times. Now, Todd, these junior teams have $900,000 buses. Like, it's totally different. Like, but when I started in 1990 covering junior hockey, we were on a school bus. I was under the seat. There was no heat. It was minus 40 outside. Like, it was, and we would always say, turn up, put some logs on the fire. That would, when it got cold on the bus, 3 in the morning and minus 40, there'd always be a player. Hey, put some logs on the fire. That was his way. Hey, look, it's fucking freezing back here.
Totally.
But there were some nights, Todd, that the snow, ice, it was touch and go. I am not going to lie to you. It was, but we had tremendous. And back then, Todd, they were volunteers, the bus drivers in junior hockey, volunteers. Nowadays, when you go rent a bus for a junior team, it's a very experienced driver, right?
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was either the president or a parent of the kid of the team, and God bless them. They got us through some pretty rough nights.
Yeah, no shit, eh? Toughest one I'll ask you, Rick.
Yeah.
Hit me with a career highlight. Nail it down to one thing.
Career highlight for me was to get to Vancouver. I'm going to tell you, Todd, I wasn't supposed to make it. I didn't. I started in 1988, and I had no, like, family support was there financially, not like a lot of raw. Nobody. I'm going to tell you, nobody believed in me. Nobody.
Where did you start?
What's that?
Where did you start? Where did you start your career?
Well, so like back in the 80s, there wasn't many Indo-Canadians trying to get into this industry, right? There was Jazz Joe Hall, and he was at BCTV Jazz, and he was kind of the first guy that broke through. And then I was starting in the late 80s. I didn't have a ton of support. I had friends and family that were kind of laughing at me saying, what are you doing? You're never going to make it. So, well, and the same people, Todd, today come up, and the same people that told me 30 years ago, you're never going to make it, now come up to me and say, hey, I heard you, I heard you on the radio. Well, weren't you the guy that said I wasn't going to make it? But that's okay, because that puts the chip on your shoulder to show everyone that you are going to.
Sure, puts a little fire there to actually, that stuff actually makes you want to be where you are.
I was in small towns all over BC, Alberta for 4.5 years. Human beings have a lot of self-doubt. There were times when I thought, what are you doing? You're not going to make it. That's just human nature. We all have ups and downs, good times, bad times. We all go through adversity. But I think getting to Vancouver in 1996, when WX started up, I got in. That's how I got my foot in the door, when WX started up, and thank God for them. And back when 2 or 3 stations were doing sports, it was different than today, where, like, no one, basically, sportscasts are being run out. It's just different times. Our industry is changing, as you and I talked about, digital. is heavy digital. But I think getting to Vancouver and staying was a big highlight for me. I didn't know if I was ever going to make it. I didn't have a ton of support. Like, again, I'll say I had support financially, but I didn't have support in the sense that, hey, go get him, Tiger. Yeah, I don't think anyone believed in me, but that's okay. That's okay, because I had a fire that was burning inside me that just never quit. I did think about quitting a few times, but it's no different than that guy that's playing for the Canucks in Abbotsford or Utica, and he's kind of thinking, you know what, am I ever going to make it in Vancouver with the Canucks? Am I ever, or is this just, am I spinning my wheels or whatever? Just human beings have self-doubt. I'm just happy I got to Vancouver. It was very hard. It was tough. It was not easy. It was a lot of tough times for me, but I'm glad that I got to Vancouver, and it's been 26 years here. So I'm happy that way. But and I talk to kids at BCIT all the time, and I tell them all the time, just work hard, be organized. I'm a neat freak too. I just, those are, things, some of the things that helped me along the way. But I talk to kids at BCIT. I tell them all the time, work hard, because everything starts with a hard work ethic, and it goes from there.
Yeah. I always wrap up each podcast with believe in yourself. Like, you need to believe in yourself for other people to believe in you,
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not blaming anyone, because back then it wasn't very normal for an Indo-Canadian kid to try broadcasting, right? And there wasn't 10 guys before me that you could look and say, oh yeah, go ahead, you're going to be that guy. Yeah. I just didn't have that. The reason I got into broadcasting was because I was a sports freak, because every day the newspaper would come at 3:30, I would run to the newspaper. If the newspaper didn't come, I would actually literally cry on my, the Royal Columbian newspaper came at 3:30 every day, and I would run to see the BC Lions stats, the Canucks stats. And I was just a stats freak. And I got out of high school. I barely got it out of grade 12. Spent more time in mugs and jugs than actually at school. Just kidding. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I saw this ad, and it's amazing how things work in life. I saw this ad in the Vancouver Province that said, "You on the air." And I thought, what the heck is that? And it was a private radio broadcast in Pacific Radio Arts. Do you remember them?
I remember that. Yeah.
Brian McDonald ran it. And Rich Jones, they were the two that were running it. So I took that course. It was 9 months. And then I got a job in Squamish, and then I went up to Fort St. John and did all that stuff. But it's just, everyone's got different journeys. Everyone's got ups and downs. I certainly had mine. But I think getting to Vancouver was a really, really big thing for me, because I did not know that I was ever going to do that.
Yeah. Well, Deadly, man, we're all, of course, big fans of what you're doing with Donnie Taylor there, and looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing over the next couple of years. Because as you say, like, it's a changing world. It's all digital, and it's bound to change even more in the next little while too.
And I want to say I love what you're doing. I see your stuff on Twitter every day. And, I spent 32 years in radio, and it was about a year and a half ago when finally friends were telling me, look, Rick, radio's having a tough go. And it's just a very expensive format, but digital is now podcasts. Everything is in your cell phone now. And when everything's in your cell phone, I don't have a radio in my house anymore. Growing up, I was the guy that had the Walkman and would listen to Jim Robson at nighttime at 9 o'clock in my bed with the volume really low to the ear so no one can hear me. I was listening to the Canucks game, and I would go to sleep with listening to Jim Robson, and the game would end at 10:20 every time at the Coliseum, because there was no TV timeouts. I knew I would not go to sleep till Jim said the Canucks win or lose, and I had my little Walkman, and that's what it was. But now everything's in your cell phone, and times are changing.
Yeah. Well, you're easy to find online.
Yeah.
Dhaliwal Sports on Twitter.
Yeah, fucking up online, that's when you find me. And when I do fuck up online, I got 500 people telling me they idiot and I fucked up. So people hold you accountable. I'm okay with that.
Of course, yeah. And Donnie and Dolly for the team, for the show you're doing with Taylor. Thanks again, sir. Tip of the hat to you, man. Appreciate you taking the time and enjoying it.
Got to thank Czech TV, and Ryan Henderson's a big part of the show as well. I can't forget Ryan. Don Taylor's the key, though. He said he's just a wonderful, brilliant television mind.
He really is. Hey? He's like one of the best ever, man.
He's simply, and look, I told you, I didn't know jack shit about TV. The reason that show works is because Don knows TV. He knows it better than anybody else in this market. So we have fun. We have shits and giggles. And, we bring you some Canucks talk, but we also have fun. That we need more laughter in the world. And sports talk radio isn't just about talking about Canucks 24/7. It's about entertainment, because if you don't entertain that listener, he's going to go elsewhere because there's a million other options.
Oh, totally. Awesome. Rick, thanks again, man, for doing this. I'll let you go, and we'll see you online, bud. Good to see you.
Anytime, buddy.